If I just park it. Hi, greetings, everybody. Um, I prepared a talk that will kind of go through what the DAR as an organization is all about, our headquarters, and then go into our chapter, how to become a DAR member, and my particular journey. So I'll just share all that with you with my Southern accent. I grew up in North Carolina. So DAR was founded in October of 1890. It's headquartered in Washington, D.C., and it's dedicated to promoting patriotism, preserving American history, and securing America's future through better education for our children. 18 women and 4 men met in Washington, D.C. to organize. The Sons of the American Revolution had just been organized a few months before in April in New York. And one of the ladies in this group read an article in the Washington Post about that organization and said, "What about the ladies?" DAR members volunteer millions of hours of service annually in their local communities, including supporting active duty military personnel and assisting veteran patients, awarding thousands of dollars in scholarships and financial aid each year to students, and supporting schools for underserved children with annual donations exceeding $1 million. As one of the most inclusive genealogy societies in the country, DAR boasts nearly 190,000 members in 3,000 chapters across the United States and internationally. Any woman age 18 or older, regardless of race, religion, or ethnic background, who can prove lineal descent from a patriot of the American Revolution is eligible for membership. Founders were 4 determined women: Eugenia Washington, Mary Desher, Margaret Lockwood, and Ellen Walworth. Mrs. Lockwood was born in Chautauqua County, New York, and she had read of the founding of the SAR. So she really wanted the women to get going, much in the vein of Abigail Adams, to remember the ladies. That first meeting in October took place at Strathmore Arms boarding house, which was her home in Washington, D.C. The nation's first lady, Mrs. Benjamin Harrison, was elected President General, and the first service project was completing a memorial monument to Mary Washington, mother of George Washington. Mrs. Lockwood was friendly to all progressive movements, especially so those dedicated to the progress of women. She was a prolific author and was the lady manager at large for the World Columbian Exposition in Chicago in 1893. She died in Plymouth, Massachusetts, as the last surviving founder and is the only one buried in Washington, D.C. Mary Desher was born in Lexington, Kentucky, and studied a short time at what became the University of Kentucky. However, the Civil War impoverished many families, and women were needed to provide an income. She followed her mother into teaching and eventually took a clerk position in Washington, D.C. in 1885. After a few years, she took a teaching position in Sitka, Alaska, finding living conditions there for Alaskan natives unacceptable. Her written protest to the government in D.C. opened a federal investigation. She eventually returned to D.C. as a clerk in the pension office and as a copyist in the Office of Indian Affairs. She spent her volunteer time assisting as assistant director of the DAR Hospital Corps during the 1898 Spanish-American War. The third lady, Ellen Walworth, was born in 1832 in Jacksonville, Illinois, and her father, John Hardin, became a United States congressman. When he died in the war with Mexico, her mother remarried and moved the family to Saratoga Springs, New York. Mrs. Walworth earned a law degree at New York University and was entitled to practice law in both New York and Washington, D.C. She opened her home after her husband's death in 1873 as a boarding and day school, living on the property until the New York winters got to her, and then she moved to DC for a warmer, more pleasant climate. She was a writer and an authority on the battlefields of Saratoga and the Burgoyne campaign. She was the first editor of the DAR American Spirit magazine. I went to Saratoga and I was going through their local museum after tasting all the mineral waters. And they have a whole room dedicated to Mrs. Walworth, and I was surprised and delighted to see that. Lastly, Eugenia Washington was from Charleston, West Virginia area. She was a great niece of Senator John Calhoun of South Carolina. When she was 19, the family moved to Falmouth, Virginia, just north of Fredericksburg. When the Battle of Fredericksburg was imminent in December 1862, evacuation with her disabled, widowed father was delayed one full day when a wounded federal officer was delivered to their home to await a surgeon. They were caught on the battlefield and escaped to a trench left by a cannon. They observed the entire battle from that trench. This experience inspired her to assist women from both the North and the South in the worthy cause of preserving their shared heritage and helping to found the DAR. After the war, she was offered a post office position and moved with her father to Washington, D.C. So you can see from the very beginning, the DAR was a very diverse organization. Our headquarters in Washington encompasses an entire city block. It's one of the largest buildings of its kind, owned and maintained exclusively by women. It is located within a walking block of both the White House and the headquarters of the American Red Cross. Memorial Continental Hall, the oldest building of the DAR complex, was designed in 1905 by prominent Washington architect Edward Pierce Casey, who was also the designer for the interior of the Library of Congress. Upon its completion, Memorial Continental Hall was quickly recognized as one of Washington, D.C.'s most elegant buildings. It contains a museum featuring period rooms sponsored by the founding states of America in the colonial period, and it's open to the public, free of charge. Since its founding in 1896, the DAR Library has grown into a specialized collection of American geological and historical manuscripts and publications, as well as powerful on-site databases. The DAR Library collection contains over 225,000 books, 10,000 research files, thousands of manuscript items, and special collections of African American, Native American, and women's history, genealogy, and culture. Nearly 40,000 family histories and genealogies comprise a major portion of the book collection, many of which are unique or available on only a few libraries in the country. The DAR Library is also free and open to the public. Constitution Hall was built in 1929, and it was designed by John Russell Pope. The hall is home to the exciting DAR Continental Congress, which takes place each summer. Since 1930, members of the DAR have come to Constitution Hall to conduct business and elect new officers during their annual convention. Over the years, Constitution Hall has also hosted many popular performers and speakers, everything from ballet, orchestra, opera, Aerosmith, country and western performers. In 1939, DAR got into hot water by denying performer Marian Anderson due to her race and sparking a major civil rights controversy. This prompted Eleanor Roosevelt and many members to resign. DAR has since worked to improve race relations and has welcomed Ms. Anderson on several occasions. And in 2005, the DAR hosted the dedication to the Marian Anderson commemorative stamp. This month, we are sponsoring and hosting the opening ceremony to the DC Cherry Blossom Festival. That just happened this past Saturday. Next month, we're celebrating America's 250th birthday with a concert by Patti LaBelle. So I have some pamphlets with pictures of Continental Hall, and it looks very much like the White House, a white marble facade and pillars. So take a look at the table over there, and I've got stuff from the DAR in general, pamphlets if you're interested in joining, my chapter. I've also got my application materials there so you can see an example of what it takes to join the DAR. And I've got a photo book that I made. So now I'll go into our chapter in particular, the Deborah Wheelock chapter, which is located in Uxbridge, Massachusetts on Main Street. We're right next to Unibank. We have 5 members over the age of 90 and 3 junior members who are 18 to 40 years old. We have, I think, 40 members on the books and 10 that are fairly active each meeting. We hold meetings during the school year, except for January and February, on the second Wednesday at 7 p.m. And the house we meet in is the Simeon Wheelock House. The chapter organized in 1899, and we celebrated 150 years in 2024 at the Daniels Farmstead in Blackstone, which is the ancestral home of member Justine Brewer. The Simeon Wheelock House was gifted to the chapter in 1910 for $1, with the stipulation that we raise money to build an endowment to take care of the house in perpetuity. That was done by hosting tea parties or just being open for tea. They would put signs out on the main roads leading into Uxbridge, and we have some examples in the house that you can view, welcoming people to come in and have a cup of tea and a refreshment and leave a donation. So that's what built the endowment that we're living off of today. The house was gifted by Mrs. Susan Hortense Taft Hayward. She was the granddaughter of Jerry and Suki Day Wheelock. Jerry was the youngest son of Simeon and Deborah Wheelock. But who was Simeon? He was the great-great-grandson of Reverend Ralph Wheelock. Reverend Ralph, the original immigrant, was the first teacher in the first public school in America, founded in the 1640s in Dedham, which was formerly known as Contentment, Massachusetts. Reverend Ralph went on to found Medfield, again serving in many of the town's offices. His son Benjamin was founder of Mendon. A great-grandson, Eleazar, established Moore's Indian Charity School in Lebanon, Connecticut. With former Mohegan Indian student Samson Occom, he founded Dartmouth College in New Hampshire in 1769 and served as its first president. So the Wheelock family in America has very deep roots. Simeon was born in 1741 in Mendon and served in the French and Indian War, marrying Deborah Thayer Wheelock, also of Mendon, in 1763. They settled in Uxbridge the same year, and he worked as a blacksmith by trade. He served as town clerk of Uxbridge for 5 years, and his blacksmith shop was believed to be on the site of the current Masonic Lodge, which is across the street from our chapter house. He and Deborah had 8 children, and the chapter house was built in 1768. With the approach of the American Revolution, Wheelock was a member of the Committee of Correspondence in 1774. He served as first lieutenant in Captain Joseph Chapin's company of Minutemen, answering the alarm on April 19, 1775. He fought in the battles of Lexington and Concord, serving for 15 days. He answered his second alarm as lieutenant in a different regiment, December 6, 1976, to January 21st,